Welcome to the Cricket Badger IPL Daily Podcast 2021. The Indian Premier League 14th edition. It's great to have you with us. From the first match all the way to the final. Chennai Super Kings, Delhi Capitals, Kolkata Knight Riders, Mumbai Indians, Punjab Kings, Rajasthan Royals, Royal Challengers Bangalore, Sunrisers Hyderabad. May the best team win. Brought to you in association with Who Knows Wins. Put your money where your mates are, and play along with the Cricket Badger.
Hello everybody, welcome along. I am James Butler, the Cricket Badger, and we've just seen Delhi Capitals win by 8 wickets. And normal service in the latter overs resumed after yesterday's Punjab Kings failure. Delhi Capitals getting across the line rather easily. Today I'm joined by Nakul Pandey and Naman Shah to talk about today and all things IPL. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening, James.
Good evening, James.
I had to wait for you to speak, but you did in the end. That's what you're here for. And Nakul, yesterday, Punjab Kings, you got into the final 2 overs and it was a walk in the park for the batting side. But somewhere inside you thought, they can't, can they? They can't, can they? Oh, they have. But Delhi Capitals today, they never look like messing that chase up.
Not really. I mean, the only reason it went that long really is because Shreyas Iyer is playing his first game in months and was still trying to find his feet and was playing almost an exaggerated version of the Shreyas Iyer tick, 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 boom innings where he takes a little time and then explodes. It never looked like being enough. It never looked like being defensible, even when you've got Rashid Khan, who bowled, again, the Rashid Khan spell, 4 overs, 1 wicket, 20-odd runs. But it wasn't enough. Sunrisers, I don't think, bowled particularly badly, but they just never had enough against Delhi Capitals team that got their best 11 on the park. Interesting to see how serious the Marcus Stoinis injury is, but they got their best 11 on the park and were simply too strong in all departments, other than the catching, which I think was probably just rust.
Yeah, I think Neil mentioned it yesterday. There's a lot of rust around, I think, in this tournament at the moment. People are just kind of brushing the cobwebs off before they get into full flow again. Naman, Sunrisers Hyderabad, they made 134 for 9. Did you ever think that was enough today?
And not at all, but I still felt that they were decent bowling attack, but they should have done better with the bowling. But I was surprised with Sandeep Sharma not given the new ball. I feel he's more aggressive and go better bowler with the new ball rather than bowling him after power play overs. But overall, looking at that batting lineup with Saha and Kedar Jadhav in top 5, when they are clearly missing Bairstow here, to be honest, big shoes to fill in, and there was a no-brainer to directly get in Jason Roy. I felt he should have been there today. They have enough Indian fast bowlers, so maybe Jason Holder could have. I'm not saying that he's not a good player, T20 player, but they have a lot of loopholes in their batting lineup with Warner totally out of form. So Jason Roy, his inclusion might have provided them the aggression they need in the first 6 overs. So overall, yes, the bowling lineup is decent enough with Bhuvi and Rashid Khan and everyone, but clearly they are struggling with the batting lineup.
Nakul, you look down the Sunrisers scorecard today. You've got 18 there. You've got another 18, 17, 28, a 22. People got starts, but nobody went on to make that really meaningful contribution in their batting ranks.
And of people who faced any decent number of deliveries, only Abdul Samad scored at over 7 runs and over, which is the other problem. You have a lot of players like Manish Pandey, who's batting, who scores at about a run a ball in the middle overs and has done for a long time. David Warner's very out of form. He's been out of form for a few years now. Go back to him really struggling against against Broad in 2019, really struggling against Archer in 2020, including the IPL.
When can we say
injured?
When can we say, Nakul, that he's not out of form anymore? This is just his level now.
Well, I do wonder if we are in the decline phase of David Warner, as great a career as it's been. He hasn't looked like being the type of player who's gonna dominate attacks for the last few years. He really struggled last IPL. His CricViz have the batting impact stat. He's been at 0 this tournament, which includes the first half of the tournament. So he's essentially batting like just another T20 player. I wonder how long it's going to be before Jason Roy comes in for David Warner. He did get dropped in the first half of the tournament to allow Johnny Bairstow to come in, who was scoring all of their power play runs for a time. Today they decided to try and have, well, I mean, initially it was carded with Manish Pandey at 3, where he does actually score relatively quickly. He scores relatively quickly in the power play, but they brought in Williamson at 3, and they're just shuffling that pack. I think I've said before, if the Sunrisers, if you're allowed 5 overseas players, the Sunrisers would be one of the best teams in the tournament, but you can't, and they can't cover everything at the same time. They're always either a batter or a bowler short. All of their Indian batters, none of them have fired at any point in the last few years. The only one really who you could say has got any upside is Abdul Samad because of his power. They end up with Holder and Rashid Khan, I think, both bat too low in this side. Rashid Khan coming in at 8 is ridiculous in a batting lineup this week. And they end up having to fight fires all the time. They're very heavily reliant on their overseas players. Obviously, I'm sure we'll come on to the COVID thing. That can't have helped Natarajan not being around, but I don't know how much it would have helped them. Obviously, it wouldn't help them with the bat at all. They, even with a bowling lineup that good, they can't put on enough runs to defend against a good team like Delhi Capitals, who didn't really need to get much beyond third gear to beat them today. It was the first normal day of T20 cricket we've had of the resumption of the IPL.
There's nothing usually normal about T20 cricket. I've forgotten, Knuckle, that you only speak in 1 minute chunks these days, don't you? Because I've been watching your YouTube videos. If anybody hasn't seen them, I retweeted them on the @cricket_badger Twitter feed this morning. So have a look at Knuckle's 1 minute little pieces after each IPL match. They're very, very good. Use them in conjunction with the podcast, obviously. Don't just ditch the podcast for Knuckle, but Knuckle's on both anyway. So
it's only a minute of your time.
Yeah. Well, watch it 5 times, 5 minutes. Now, man, Amrit Norkia got man of the match today, 2 for 12. Kahisa Rabada, we talk about him a lot, 3 for 37, 3 wickets for him. He just continues to take 2s and 3s and ends up towards the top end of the wicket-taking stakes. Aksa Patel, the other wicket taker. But Delhi Capital's bowling attack is something else, isn't it?
Yes, after Mumbai Indians, the one bowling attack which is more brutal and lethal is, to be honest, Delhi Capitals, and these 2 fast bowlers, especially with Rabada and Nokia, they have been demolishing both sides, like one-sided. And today you saw hardly Nokia is bowled below 145, as we discussed earlier. He was hitting 150s regularly, and yes, they are brilliant, and with Vokes not there, with Vokes inclusion, they were more deadly. But overall, yes, with Ashwin Aksar, and they have one of the finest bowling lineup with Amit Mishra sitting in the dugout. And these are the 2 bowlers who have done not only in UAE, also they won the matches for Delhi, even in India also. So they have a big part to play for Delhi, get them to this stage. And yes. I am sure Delhi is now 1 win away to qualify, and I feel they are the best team right now to beat in this year's IPL.
I was looking at the table, Knuckle, from last year, just as a bit of a guide as to how many points teams needed. I know it varies a little bit every now and again, but 14 points was the benchmark last year. That was the lowest qualification. I think KKR missed out on 14 as well. I think 3 teams finished on 14 points, but that win today takes Delhi Capitals to 14 with games to play. So you imagine that they are now pretty much inked into the playoffs at the very least. I was looking at their team as well today, and you see a lot of changes. I mean, Sunrisers have made changes. Bairstow's not there anymore. They brought new players in. Other teams have done the same. Delhi Capitals are basically the same team that left India, plus they've got Shreyas Iyer back fit. They're looking in decent shape, aren't they?
It's the team that you would have expected to be picked if everyone was available, and that's a good thing. You can say that about Mumbai Indians, bar maybe 1 or 2 players. You can see that about CSK. I think you can probably say that about KKR going forward in this tournament, and that's usually a good sign. Shreyas Iyer coming back, obviously, it means that they did very well last year with Lalit Yadav, who played a very important part in the first half of the tournament. But it means that they're not having to mess around with him. They're not having to play an extra overseas batter like Stephen Smith, who never fired last year and was never, or the first half of this year, rather, I should say, and was never really going to. It'd be interesting to see again how they balance it with Stoinis missing. I would like to see Sam Billings come in, but I don't know if they're going to go with only 5 bowlers. Ashwin didn't even really perform today, and they still looked far too good. Yeah, you'd imagine certainly one more win in their 3, maybe 2 more wins, and they're probably top 2 with 5 to play now for the Delhi Capitals. They're in a very very good position, and they look like one of the strongest teams throughout this cycle of auctions. So looking at and the way that they balance out those the South African fast bowlers, you got Nortje top and middle, Rabada middle and death. Really, you don't even need to use Rabada in the power play if you don't want to, because you've got Nortje, you've got Akshar Patel, you've got Avesh Khan, you've got Ashwin, it was a surprise to me that he didn't bowl in the power play. You've got so many options. Stoinis obviously chipping in where he can. Again, who knows what his injury is going to be like? They didn't even need him. They didn't need Hetmeyer today with the bat. There's a lot of latency, as it were, in that redundancy, I should say, in that Delhi Capitals lineup. They got those backups. I was also looking at just the sheer pace. I loved how I think Nortje and Rabada did exactly the right thing in terms of their lengths. They didn't pitch much up. It was back of a length, hard lengths, as you call it, hitting the top of the bat, hitting the splice of the bat, and at pace. I was looking at the pace stats for this year. Of the top 10 fastest deliveries, Anrich Nortje has the top 8, and Kagiso Rabada has number 9.
Yeah, that says it all, doesn't it? And we were talking, Naman, before Nakul joined us, before we press go live today, about the control that somebody like Anrich Nortje has. He's bowling express speed. And you go back a few years and your fast bowlers would be splaying it all over the place. I guess this is something to do with white ball cricket. You have to have your disciplines in T20 and ODIs. And Anrich Nortje's control at that speed is quite impressive, isn't it?
I truly feel that since he has been included now in red ball cricket as well, he went to Pakistan and he went to various countries. I feel playing him in red ball cricket has helped him a lot because test cricket is the real thing which helps the bowler, not only the batsmen but the bowlers as well. And bowling alongside likes of Ngidi and Rabada also helps him. So overall, I'm sure that the confidence which Ponting and the likes of Iyer has put in him and giving him the new ball, and he is enjoying bowling alongside Rabada. He does it for his country also. So yes, you see different Nortje which we used to see from 3 years now on. When he was picked for KKR, he went for plenty over there, but now he is the go-to bowler. So this is the difference, and not only about the line and length, but the speed with which he is bowling consistently. So I am really looking forward with this bowling lineup what Africa is having into the World Cup. I am clearly saying that they are underrated with this bowling, with Shamsi included.
Yeah, they've got pretty much all bases covered. Go to the bottom end of the table. It's a sublime to the ridiculous, isn't it? With Sunrisers Hyderabad still on 2 points. Even if they were to win their remaining 6 matches, they can only get to 14, which was the cut-off last year for qualification, Knuckle, and it looks as if they're out, aren't they, basically? I can't see them qualifying from where they are. They do have a habit of coming through the pack on a great run towards the end, but they've left themselves far too much to do this time.
I mean, they're 2 wins behind the 2 teams in front of them, and already just over halfway through the season, they're 4 wins off the kind of the bubble, as it were, at 4 and 5. They've left themselves too much to do. Probably, because it would have to go spectacularly wrong for not just 1, but 2 or 3 teams above them. The table is looking less bunched than it was last year. Last year, as you say, you had 3 teams separated by net run rate on the bubble. We've seen the last 2 years, Kolkata Knight Riders have missed out on the final day on net run rate, finishing in 5th. But things like, for example, KKR winning so handsomely the other day, their net run rate is massive. They've got a positive net run rate, despite the fact they're in the bottom half of the tournament. It means that the Sunrisers have simply, and Sunrisers have the worst net run rate, or not quite. RCB, because of that horrendous display the other night, have the lowest net run rate in the tournament. But 1 more win, and that'll be not the case. They surely can't play that badly again. The Sunrisers, this cycle of the Sunrisers with very Indian heavy in the seam attack, very Indian heavy in the batting, and relying on these very heavily on their overseas players. They're probably the most reliant franchise in the IPL on their overseas players, has come to an end. It's been a great run for them with this very bowling heavy approach that they've done, and it worked for them for a long time. They were champions, they were regularly very consistent, but it's come to an end seemingly, and they will be in need of a massive rebuild come the mega auction. They need
they get their chance to do it as well. I mean, that mega auction is going to be fascinating, I think, when we get to that, because there's a few question marks about a number of sides and how they're going to try and remedy that and get themselves back stronger. Naman Shikhar, proudly wearing the cap for the leading run scorer in the competition. Were you surprised not to see him in India's T20 side, or is his time at that international level gone now?
The likes of competition which India is having right now, it's too tough to choose. And also with KL, Ishan Kishan, Prithvi Shaw, all these young bloods. And to be honest, the competition is at only for the opening positions, because the middle order is fixed over there. And you also see Kohli opening for India. So it's not that Dhawan is not performing. That is why he has been ousted out from the World Cup. But KL Rahul has been brilliant in the white ball cricket. So it's just more on the merit, and maybe the conditions or the kind of tricksters we end up seeing in the World Cup and in the T20s, likes of Adil Rashid and too many leggies out there. So I feel there is much more of technical discussion rather than form. But yes, as far as I know, the teams can be modified till 10th of October. So you never know which team does what
Do you think he's got a point to prove in this IPL, though? He seems to. I mean, he always plays well in the IPL, doesn't he? But do you think he's just trying to prove a point a little bit, just to remind people he exists?
No. He's too mature to do that, and I don't think so. He is doing that. He's just playing on his merit, and he is batting for himself out there. I just feel he has a chance, maybe for Ishan Kishan, because only the experience I am considering over there. If one of the matches, if Ishan Kishan is being played into play against any of the teams in World Cup and he doesn't perform, so the pressure of the World Cup will be mounting on him, because even Surya Kumar Yadav, though he is 30, but he has not much played international cricket. So I only feel that experience would matter a lot going into the World Cup. So maybe in place of Ishan Kishan, I would consider Dhawan. But overall, it is quite tough to see him out and not in the World Cup squad.
In terms of proving a point, he's batting just as he batted in the first half of the tournament and in last year's tournament. There's no real difference in terms of how he's going about things. He's picked up his strike rate and picked up his intent in the first 20 balls, and he's added some range of shots. So the inside out drives over cover, the little flick back over the bowler's head, I thought was in the early stages of the innings, and then the slog sweep of Rashid Khan. He used to get a little bit stuck against the spinners, but he's got these slog sweeps. He even swept Sandeep Sharma at one point today. He was unlucky to be left out, as was, I think, Deepak Chahar, both superb players and have got superb IPL records, but you can't particularly argue with KL Rahul and Bhuvneshwar Kumar ahead of them either. So it is, as Noman says, there were going to be some very good players left out of this squad.
I was going to say, if India picked everybody that you thought stood a chance, they would have a squad of about 70, wouldn't they? Probably even more. The last point on today's match, Delhi Capitals, the chase was very well measured, and they never looked like they were not going to win that match. And Shreyas Iyer, 47 not out from 41, was the kind of calming influence, as Naman says. As Nakul says, Naman coming back into the side, just kind of edging his way back into form. And Rishabh Pant, the punchy little player, comes in as captain, obviously been retained as captain. And those two together combined beautifully today. It was the former captain and the current captain batting together. Were you surprised that Rishabh got the nod, or did you expect Shreyas to, a fit against Shreyas, to come back in and regain the reins again?
No, I was not surprised. I felt they are just giving more time to a year to get settled down. It's not easy to just come up and lead a side into the T20s, and they are doing well this year's IPL and not burden a year with more responsibility. He's just now settling down with his batting, and he played well today. He played an anchor innings, supported Dhawan well, and once Dhawan was out, he got aggressive along with Pant. So he is a kind of a base, providing a base to Delhi over there, because Rahane, they tried Rahane, but he was not looking into that quite form. But overall, I feel is right now the correct choice. But they have chosen Pant as a captainship and left Iyer alone with his batting lineup. It is only good for him. More good innings are surely coming up for him, and his form matters for India as well. So overall, fantastic. It's good to see Iyer back in runs. He's a fantastic player.
You mentioned the mega auction, Knuckle, which is obviously around the corner after this tournament finishes, and whether Shreyas Iyer stays with Delhi, whether they retain him, or whether he moves somewhere else. The fact that he's proven now as a captain, because his time with Delhi has been successful. He's led them to 2 finals, and he's looked a very mature individual. That stands him in good stead with 2 new franchises coming in. They're going to be looking for a leader. He could be snapped up by one of them, couldn't he?
He could. I mean, it'd be a very interesting decision to see who Delhi decide to use their retentions and right to matches on. You'd imagine Rishabh Pant and Prithvi Shaw would be heading up that list, and probably Nortje. I think Nortje would probably get my pick over Kakisa Rabada, which is some measure of just how good Nortje has been over the last few years when it comes to those 4 slots. And maybe they try and buy Iyer back at the inflated price. I don't know. Try and keep some of this young Indian core together, which gives them so many options. I mean, the fact that they've got a top 4 composed entirely of in-form good Indian batters gives them so many options in the for the rest of the 11. And then you throw in Akshar and Ashwin as well as options. It means that you don't have to. You're not scrabbling around to fill holes in the team with players who are either not yet experienced enough or don't have that confidence yet, or who are on the way down, as the Sunrisers have found themselves in. I would wonder if there's going to be a little bit of that with them this. This might be their last chance for this group to win something as good as they've been, turning Delhi from, let's be honest, a complete joke of a franchise in the previous. They'd gone the longest period without getting into the playoffs. They'd never made a final before they made one in the rebrand years. They weren't at all popular in their hometown, and it started with that. They became popular again among their own fans. I do think also probably playing fewer games in Delhi has helped them over the last few years, because that is not a surface that rewards fast stroke play or fast scoring or aggressive stroke play in the same way that some of the pitches they've been playing on in the last few years goes. But they're a very, very good team, and we may find out just how good that squad is, because we don't know how fit or otherwise Marcus Stoinis is. I'm just looking to see when Delhi's next game is. I suspect it's at the weekend. Yes, it's on Saturday against Rajasthan and Abu Dhabi. So they pick a third spinner and sort of push people up the order to try and that went Mishra say as an option.
I don't know if you were watching the commentary today, but they started talking about whether a team should be packed full of all-rounders and who should open, and they couldn't think of one. And Marcus Stoinis was walking in front of them, and I kind of thought, he's there. Anyway, no, man, I mean, the fact that this mega auction, the fact that you are a leader as an Indian player, is a major thing, isn't it? Because rather than a franchise having to buy in a captain, an overseas player, a David Warner of old or whatever, and making him the leader, the fact that you are worth your place in the side, a local Indian, and also a potential captain, you got 3 feathers to your cap there, haven't you?
Yes, more than choosing a leader and a captain, I feel the local face and also belonging to that particular region helps a lot. And that is why we say call them icon face and not the leader of that team particularly, because the face of a player builds a team, builds the fan base of that particular team. It's everything about Dhoni when you talk about Chennai. It's everything about Kohli when you talk about RCB.
You can't get through a podcast without mentioning MSD, can you? He doesn't.
Also, MS Dhoni's about most of the length of India away from Chennai in terms of where he's where he's from. She's not exactly a local player. I do wonder if actually he might be a replacement for Dhoni as CSK captain in the next mega auction.
Yeah, because they're going to have to look for somebody, aren't they? I mean, just on that though, no man. If you are a supporter of Mumbai, or if you're a supporter of Delhi, or whoever, does it matter to you that is Rohit Sharma, for example, is a Mumbai lad, isn't he? And he plays for Mumbai Indians. Is that a major factor? Do they love him more because of that, or would it not really matter if he came from Chennai or somewhere else? Would they still love him equally?
Initially, it won't, but yes, being a Mumbaiker and being so passionate about this team, and it's not just watching cricket, the emotions are attached with this team because we have been through a journey. We have seen Rohit play alongside the likes of Sachin and everything, so it's like a brand building up. We have seen Hardik Pandya and Pollard, and they have been with the teams with us in so long, so many years, so it's all about attachment also, and not only watching them just come out and hit sixes. So yes, it does matter when a local guy has been picked up for the team. As I said, it helps creating a franchise, a fan base, and after then going on to the on the ground, and because it is right, 2022 will be right from the scratch, right? It start from where it began in 2008. So
it'll be almost quite strange, that, isn't it? It's going to be quite weird to see some of these faces playing for a different side.
Well, I mean, it'll be almost more like, was it 2010 or no, 2011? I think when they had the two new teams, when they had the 10-team IPL. So it'll look completely different next year. I mean, I don't know. I presume that the 4 overseas players and 8 in the squad will still be retained, but we could see a lot of players playing in some very unfamiliar looking kits. I mean, see what kit colors the Lucknow and Ahmedabad teams turn out in. But yeah, we could see a lot of players. I mean, I don't know that, presumably Mumbai would want to put some golden shackles on Jasprit Bumrah, but if not, the Ahmedabad franchise would certainly be looking at him as a local boy. But I think that for Delhi, I mean, Shreyas Iyer and Prithvi Shaw are from Mumbai, but they almost feel like Delhi boys now because they've been associated with the rebirth of this team for so long. And you got Rishabh Pant, who is a sort of a dot, eventually ended up in Delhi. Ishant Sharma is from there. I think Avesh Khan as well. So there are some young players from that region. I suppose the other team who will be looking for a new captain, potentially a new Indian captain, is Royal Challengers Bangalore. So there's plenty of destinations potentially for Shreyas Iyer if Delhi can't find a way to retain him. But I think that he, in terms of his batting for this season, he completely agree with Naman. I think keeping with Rishabh Pant as captain was the right thing to do. Having captained the side pretty well in the first half of the tournament, and he will get better. It's his first game since March. It's his first game since that ODI he got injured in against England back in March. So he will find his form again, and he won't always take so much time to get going. I mean, he was batting under a run a ball for his first 26 balls and barely over a run a ball until he.
I mean, it helped him today.
He
didn't have to go any faster, did he? Because everything was under control.
Oh, that's quite right. And he'd had Shikhar Dhawan scoring quickly before him, and he had Rishabh Pant after him. He won't be able to do that in previous games. He won't be able to take 35 balls to really start picking it up. I think he hit one boundary in his first 35 balls or so. That big 6, lovely trademark no look Shreyas Iyer shot. He's only going to get better as this tournament goes on, I think.
Let's finish off with COVID. Nakul mentioned it earlier. Obviously, Natarajan's currently isolating, being tested positive, and our best wishes to him for a speedy recovery. There's 5 or 6 other SRH, either players or coaching staff, that have having to isolate after being close contacts with Natarajan as well. Now, man, in India at the moment, I mean, you'll have been speaking to mates and stuff like that. Are people concerned about that, or is this just something to get past as long as it doesn't get any worse?
Yes, it is now something to get past because vaccinations are being done. It's 1 or 2 states which are badly affected, but overall, yes, people have started accepting this because sometime it's now time, like the patients have been lost right now because a lot of people have lost their businesses, and like there is so much of livelihood affected out there. So yes, COVID is not that much right now affected, with people speculating about third wave a lot, and that is the reason the second half of IPL is now conducted in UAE. But by God's grace, right now it is fine, and the vaccinations, the number of vaccinations which are being done per day, it's more like 1 crore vaccination per day. So the run rate and the momentum is fine, because it's like you are talking about 130 crores of population, right? It's not easy to get out of this pandemic that easily. So overall, right now, the only thing which is concerned, which matters the most right now, it's festival season. So it is more scary right now, because till December, till Christmas, people would be moving out, they would be touring a lot to various countries and states in India as well. So this is the time when people needs to take extra care, because every time you just cannot expect others to put limitations and rules for you yourself, you also have to contribute. So overall, right now it is more like easy, the situation is easy and well, and people are also following everything. But you just do not know, because more knowledge you get about COVID, something new comes up, right? So it's just fingers crossed, and hopefully this ends soon.
I think
talking to a friend earlier about the winter in England's always been tipped as being the time where it can incubate and maybe change its course a little bit. And if it ducks past the vaccines and mutates into something completely different, kind of we're back to square one again. So fingers crossed everything works out, and fingers crossed, as I say, Natarajan gets well soon. But
I understand that Natarajan is asymptomatic.
Yeah.
So we'll have to isolate for a while, along with the Ganeshan Periaswamy, the net bowler, and some members of the support staff.
Nakul, they'll be hoping, won't they, that this is an isolated incident. I mean, there are a lot of talk when India and England about the fact that 2 or 3 days down the line they could all test positive and it can incubate. So they'll be hoping, the tournament organisers, that nothing goes further than this.
Especially this early in the second leg, with all of the negative publicity going around in cricket at the moment, with India leaving, with the non-tour of Pakistan by New Zealand, and then by England. I think to Naman's point, it's probably not a surprise that it's players like Natarajan and Ganeshan who are more vulnerable. Varun Chakravarti I would throw into that as well. Players who aren't involved full-time in the Indian setup, players who don't come from particularly well-off backgrounds. None of them. I mean, Ganeshan, I think he's not even, he is a full-time cricketer, but he still works to supplement his income and his family. Chetan Sakaria as well would be another one, comes from a very modest background, to say the least.
I love Sakaria. He's one of my favourites.
Yeah, it's a fantastic story, and he's a great bowler.
He's always smiling. I love it. Potentially
a great bowler. Yeah, so players who come from more vulnerable backgrounds, frankly, were always going to be the most likely, and they're probably, in fact, they're definitely safer in this UAE IPL bubble than they are back home. Certainly, as Ganapati and Diwali come up, and we head into the Christmas period, it's going to be. I mean, some parts of India are not going to be particularly nice places to be. Quite apart from Diwali, Delhi's always not a good place to be in the aftermath of Diwali anyway, because of the smog. But I do wonder if we know. I don't know if you know if there are any post IPL, so when players go back to India, particularly quarantine regulations that they have to abide by.
I'm not sure about that. I imagine there'll be something in place, but I don't know how that works
those players who aren't staying on for the World Cup or going elsewhere.
Yeah, you'd imagine there'll be something, but I'm not sure what the duration of that would be. But yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed for this tournament and for everybody involved as well, that everything settles down and Natarajan's back playing very soon indeed. Tomorrow, Mumbai Indians against the Kolkata Knight Riders. Mumbai Indians trying to put right their defeat to CSK, KKR. Obviously, trying to kind of just nudge their way up the table. Otherwise, they are in danger of finishing fifth again and just being edged out of the playoffs. They're in that kind of situation at the moment. So that's going to be an interesting match as we head into tomorrow. And of course, we'll be back tomorrow to talk about all things that game and whatever else is occurring in the IPL as well. Nakul and Naman, thank you very much indeed for joining me. You rush off and do your 1 minute, Nakul. I'll be watching that later on as well. Make sure you watch it out there as well, viewers and listeners. And thank you for lending us your ears and eyes as well for this podcast. As I say, we'll be back in tomorrow. I've been James the Cricket Badger, and I will see you then.